Welcome to Distress to Joyful, Bailey's Way. I'm your host, Bailey Raber, here to enlighten you and the rest of the world about one of the most misunderstood mental health disorders out there, bipolar disorder. In each episode, we'll learn more about my personal journey with bipolar II disorder, how I've struggled with it, and how I've learned to overcome those struggles. Together, we'll laugh, we'll cry, and most importantly, we'll have fun. You'll leave each episode feeling hopeful and stocked full of useful information on how you can better yourself and the world around you. Hello, friends. I am so happy to be back for a full episode this time around. I hope you guys enjoyed the bonus episode and that you found some kind of inspiration in that, because that's my goal. My goal is to continue my pursuit of inspiring others constantly. As for announcements, I don't really have a lot today. Life has just been crazy. It's just been a whirlwind lately, and actually I was feeling kind of depressed recently. And I'll have an episode further about depression later, just a heads up. But I was feeling really down. And you know what my partner Monish and I ended up doing to literally shake that depression away? We went to a trampoline park. Yes, those little parks that are usually meant for children, that is what we did. And let me tell you, it was so much fun. So much fun. And I will say it was hard to get out of bed and get the motivation to go to this trampoline park. But y'all, once we were there, my inner child just came out, and I had so much fun, and so did Monish. We both left just feeling so good. We moved our bodies, we had fun, we played like children, it was so much fun. And Brene Brown talks about this a lot. And I talk about Brene Brown a lot. But an important part of living is play. Finding a way to play and have joy in simple things like jumping on a trampoline and playing dodgeball with your partner. Seriously. So that is just something I wanted to kind of throw out there for anybody who might need some new ideas to help pull themselves out of depression. Find something to do that's play. Go ride go-karts, go bowling, go do something in that matter, because seriously, y'all, I felt completely different walking out of that trampoline park than I did walking in. I will say I don't recommend going alone if you're an adult. Monish and I went together, so we were definitely those weird adults that were jumping around with all the kids. Oh yeah, we were definitely getting some looks from parents at some point, what are you guys doing here? And we don't care. We literally didn't care. We cared about having fun, and that's what we did. So if you're like me and Monish and you really don't give a shit what people think about you, then go to the goddamn trampoline park and get some joy in your life, because seriously, so much fun. All right, so before we begin diving into today's episode, Nightmares and Trauma, I need to tell y'all something about me that I don't think I've told y'all before. I have PTSD. Now, to be clear, I've never been formally diagnosed with PTSD. I do plan to go see a new psychiatrist in the upcoming future and just do a whole workup to see what the fuck it really is going on inside here. It's been a while since I've had a whole fresh take on things. But after my therapist and I have started digging into some really tough things in my past, it's been decided that I have at least one type of PTSD, but more so CPTSD. Oh, wow. That was a mouthful. CPTSD. Which is complex PTSD, which means you've had multiple traumas that have happened over and over again, and so it's complex. It's not just one type of thing. So first of all, what is PTSD? So PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, and the following definition that I'm about to read was found in an article titled, "What is Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder?" Duh. Located on psychiatry.org. So, PTSD is a psychiatric disorder that may occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event, such as a natural disaster, a serious accident, a terrorist act, a war combat, or rape, or have been threatened with death, sexual violence, or serious injury. Ooh, that's a little heavy. All right. Well, now that we know what PTSD is, what the fuck happened to me that has caused this to occur inside me? Good question. So, first of all, car accidents. So, back to the definition, it says a serious accident. Y'all, remember episode 11 of season 2 titled Reckless Driving and Bipolar Disorder? So if you haven't tuned into this episode yet, dude, now is the time. You really got to go do it as soon as you're done listening to this one. But for now, I'm just going to give you a little gist of that episode, or remind you of that episode if you're a little angel who's already listened to it, that y'all, I've been in multiple car accidents, and most of those were due to reckless driving from unmanaged bipolar disorder in my early 20s and late teens. 3 of those accidents that I've been in were total losses. Although, just to set the record straight, of those 3 total losses, one of those was not my fault. I do have to stand up for myself. But still, obviously I had to give myself credit that I didn't cause 3 total losses. I only caused 2. But regardless, that's a lot, guys. That's a lot. And that's not even all of the accidents I've been in. That's just 3 major ones of all of them. And for a comparison, just for any of y'all who maybe have been in 1 car accident or 2 or a couple, whatever it might be, y'all, my partner Monish has been in 0 car accidents. He's 29. I am 28. And I have been in so many. You'll have to go listen to episode 11 of season 2 to know how many, because I don't remember right now, but I definitely tell you in that episode. But he's been in 0, and I have been in a handful of them. And because of this, I now have PTSD from these. Serious accidents, 101. So while I am very, very grateful that I wasn't seriously injured in any of these accidents, the aftermath of them, especially because of there being multiple, y'all, the aftermath is that PTSD has taken over. And it's to the point where sometimes I panic when I'm riding in the cars with others. Like, I will literally panic. And this panic is due to an uncontrollable feeling that arises in my stomach whenever the brakes are slammed, if we get too close to another car, if somebody runs a red light, if there's a vehicle that pulls out and almost hits us, the list goes on. There are so many different situations where I have not been in an accident, but it appeared like an accident might occur, and so panic immediately sets in. And that's from my PTSD, y'all. Straight up. That's what it's from. And the best way to describe this feeling is that my heart will start to beat faster, my body will get really tense, my stomach will get all knotted up, but then it will lurch as if that knot is trying to escape my body. And I will often sometimes scream or shout or gasp or something along the lines of that, because that's how scared I feel. It's a feeling inside my body of terror, and it causes me to react. Literally, that's what happens. Okay, so that's one form of what the fuck happened to me to where PTSD is involved. So this next one I'm about to list is a lot bigger and a lot harder to address, but it's from my family background. And I'm not going to get into any details on this as of right now, but in order to move further into the topic of my nightmares, I do have to mention that I experienced some traumatic events as a child within my home. I'm going to leave it at that for the time being. And thirdly, back in my partying days, I experienced some traumatic events. And to be honest, I can't even begin to go into any details of these experiences because either I was very drunk and so I don't remember all of it, or I only have pieces of it that I can remember, or because I shoved those memories so far down into my memory bank that I'm having to yank them out slowly, one by one during therapy in order for me to be able to heal completely. And it fucking sucks, y'all. It fucking sucks. Oh, man. But you know what? Whew. The hard part is now over. And by that, I mean, I've told you that I have experienced trauma in multiple different forms. And I even went so far as to mention what types of trauma I've gone through. Yeah, that was hard. That was hard. Whew. Okay, so now let's move forward and let's talk about nightmares that I'm having and what trauma has to do with them. So I found an article on sleepfoundation.org titled How Trauma Affects Dreams that says the following. Nightmares are a pretty common experience, with between 4 and 10% of the population having nightmares weekly. After experiencing a traumatic event, nightmares are even more common. Nightmares may be an intense expression of the body working through traumatic experiences, so intense that the nightmares cause the sleeper to wake up. Nightmares may also represent a breakdown in the body's ability to process trauma. Fortunately, for most people, trauma-related nightmares subside after a few weeks or months. During a frightening event, the body's fight, flight, freeze response is activated in order to protect us from harm. We become hypersensitive to danger as the body releases stress hormones, our pupils dilate, and our heart rate increases. After we've had time to process a traumatic event, this alarm system usually quiets and returns to normal functioning. While not all people who have repetitive nightmares are diagnosed with a mental health disorder, these nightmares are a common experience in people diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, aka PTSD. Okay, here's the crazy thing, y'all. The crazy thing is that all of these traumatic events that I've experienced happened years ago, some of them even decades ago. I'm 28, remember, I've lived more than 2 decades. So why am I all of a sudden having nightmares now? Before we can answer this question, and this question is there because of what I just read from the article, that fortunately for most people, trauma-related nightmares subside after a few weeks or months. That's not happening with me, so what's going on? So before we get to the answer to that question, let's start by talking about when these nightmares first started occurring, how often they occur, and the intensity of them. So I first began having nightmares during the global pandemic, about April 2020 for a roundabout date. At this time, they were very sparse, meaning I had a nightmare every so often, but not on a regular basis. These nightmares were intense, and they would often wake me up. Sometimes I would wake up startled or in a panic, and Monish would literally have to calm me down or comfort me because that's how intense they were when they first started back then. And this frequency of intense nightmares continued throughout the rest of 2020 and all throughout 2021, happening often but not on a regular basis. So let's flash forward to the beginning of this year, 2022. So now these nightmares are frequent, but they're a lot less intense. So they're frequent because they're now happening every single night. Every single night. And they're less intense because I am no longer waking up due to them. And I usually am not in a panic when I wake up, although I often have cold sweats and I wake up feeling anxious, and they even often affect my mood first thing in the morning, which that sucks because I usually will go to my workout camp when I first wake up, and I don't like being in a bad mood, especially when I'm around others, and literally, my mood has been affected at my workout camps because of this, and it sucks. It super sucks. And to be clear, none of my nightmares involve me dying, me getting seriously injured. And by seriously injured, I mean like broken bones or hospitalization. I have had some nightmares where I've been mildly injured, though, by the way. I'm never killing or attacking anyone. Nobody's ever killing or attacking me. There are no clowns or monsters or demons or ghosts. None of the typical things that you would think of when you think of a nightmare because of all these damn scary movies that are out. Okay, so on the topic of clarity, let's get into the definition of a nightmare. So the Oxford Dictionary defines a nightmare as a dream that is very frightening or unpleasant. Yeah, that's the definition of a nightmare. So nightmares can be about basically anything if you think about it. If your dream scares you, has you feeling anxious, gives you creepy vibes, that's a fucking nightmare, dude. That is a nightmare. Unpleasant dream. That's a nightmare. So let's talk about 2 nightmares that I will never forget. Never forget. So the first one was Thanksgiving morning of 2020. So this was the very first Thanksgiving that I did not spend with my family of origin, aka the parents that raised me. And it was spent with my partner Monish and his friend who had flown into town, both of which were Indian, both of which had never experienced Thanksgiving before. So this was going to be a completely different Thanksgiving than I've ever had in my entire life. And I remember waking up in a panic that morning, and I can just picture all of this clear as day, clear as today's day. But the nightmare was I was in my parents' house, the house I grew up in, and it was Thanksgiving Day, and they were trying to keep me there, and I didn't want to stay there. Like, they were literally just trying to force me to stay at the house, and I ran out the door, and I ran around the block, and I started hiding at the neighbors' houses, like in their garages and wherever I could, because I was trying to escape my parents. And as I was doing this, like I was making my way up around these streets, and all of these streets and everything was the childhood streets that I grew up on and around. And they came looking for me, and I think when they found me is when I woke up. So again, this nightmare was, November 2020. It's been almost 2 years. But I just remember feeling so scared in that nightmare because I felt trapped, I felt terrorized, and I ran away. And the crazy thing about this nightmare is that I ran away twice, actually 3 times when I was in high school. I ran away from home 3 times. And so this was kind of like a repeat of what happened, but not really, because this whole situation never occurred. But I did run away on 3 different occasions. And boom, there's that. There's that. I'm not going to go any more details onto that right now. That's another episode for another day. Yeah, so that was one of the nightmares that woke me up in a panic. And then an additional nightmare that I will never forget, I call it Who Stole My Shoes? And you might find this one a little silly, and I might giggle a little bit while retelling it, but hear me out. There is a deep underlying issue that is being portrayed through what happened in this particular nightmare. And I'm going to recount that message of that underlying issue after I tell you about it. So in this nightmare, I had walked into a restaurant. It was a carpeted restaurant, which is super strange. And it was a loft style. So I walk up the stairs, and when I get up the stairs to like the loft area, the hostess tells me I have to take off my shoes and throw them in this pile of shoes before I can go sit at my table. And I'm laughing because, y'all, if y'all don't know anything about Indian culture, they take off their shoes when they enter people's homes. Like, that's a huge thing in their culture. And so, and the temples, it's not just people's homes. That's just an everyday situation. But like in temples too and everything, you remove your shoes. It's a respect type thing. I'm not going to go into details on that, but I'm laughing because that's probably why I was removing my shoes in this particular nightmare because I'm used to doing that when I go places with Monish. So I take off my shoes and I go to my table and I sit down and jump forward. I go to get my shoes because I'm going to go downstairs at this restaurant, and I go to the pile of shoes and my shoes aren't there. And the specific shoes that I was wearing that I threw into the pile are a real pair of shoes that I own. They are Manolo Blahniks. They're the Hangzhou the Hangzhou satin pointy toe shoes. I'm literally gonna put a picture of them in the show notes so you can see what I'm talking about. They are not cheap shoes. They are luxury. They're the only pair of luxury shoes I own. And so these were the shoes in my dream, and I had put them in the pile. And I told the hostess, I was like, my shoes aren't here. Where are my shoes? And she goes, yeah, they're here. They're right here. And she picks up the ugliest fucking pair of shoes I had ever seen. And she's like, these are your shoes. And I'm in this nightmare, I'm looking at her and I say, those aren't my shoes. My shoes are Manolo Blahniks. My shoes cost $1,000, which, pause, by the way, I didn't spend $1,000 on my Manolo Blahniks. I bought them used on the internet. Anyways, continue. So I told her, I was like, these aren't my shoes. My shoes are Manolo Blahniks. And she's like, no, these were your shoes. This is what you wore in here. And I was like, no, they're not. My shoes cost $1,000. These are garbage. And then she wouldn't let me go down the stairs without any shoes on. But my shoes weren't there. Somebody had stolen them. So I'm freaking out and I'm so anxious. And I wake up in cold sweats and I wake up feeling anxious. And the message behind all of this, guys, I have a fear of losing things. And more specifically, I have a massive fear of things being taken from me. Because while growing up, my parents' favorite form of punishment was to take things away. And sometimes it was so harsh that they would ground me. So meaning that not only could I not go anywhere, but I was also required to stay in my room. And when they would ground me, they would take away my phone, my laptop, my iPod Touch, and sometimes my goddamn sewing machine. They would take away my ability to be creative and my outlet while I was suffering their harsh punishment. What the fuck? So yeah, that is the message that came out within this particular nightmare. And so you can see, nightmares don't involve clowns and ghosts and things like you see on TV, y'all. They involve real life things that have rubbed you wrong. Okay, friends, have y'all heard about this little magic productivity drink called Magic Mind? So first of all, y'all should know by now that I am super productive. And just when I thought I couldn't be any more productive, my friends over at Magic Mind came around. They sent me some samples of their product and they showed me that I can be more productive. Crazy as it sounds, I literally can. So here's the deal. Magic Mind is a drink and it's like a coffee, but without all the extra caffeine. And because I'm already so high energy, I only allow myself to consume coffee once per day, and that has to be in the morning. But what Magic Mind does that coffee does not do is that it gives me lasting energy without feeling super hyper and unable to concentrate, which coffee can sometimes do if I overdo it. Magic Mind allows me to focus, it helps me to stay calm, and all of these benefits have been super, super helpful, especially when I'm in the middle of a hypomanic episode. When I think that I'm superwoman and I'm running around trying to do all the things. So normally during hypomania, I start a million new projects and I never actually finish anything. But ever since I started drinking Magic Mind each morning, I've seen an increase in finishing all of these millions of projects that I've started. It's freaking awesome, guys. So Magic Mind was so kind to give me a 20% off code to share with you so that you can give this little magic elixir drink a try. So head on over to magicmind.co/joy20 and enter code JOY20 at checkout. That's JOY 20. And the great thing is that they have a money back guarantee, although I guarantee that you're going to find this drink just as amazing as I do. Woo! Just as amazing as I do. So if you're looking for a way to increase your energy, to relieve stress, or to just get more shit done and stay calm while doing so, you've definitely got to give Magic Mind a try. So don't forget, go to magicmind.co/joy20 and use code joy20 at checkout. You can also find this link in the show notes for this episode, but once again, that's magicmind.co and use code joy20. All right, so let's answer the question from earlier. Why the fuck is this happening now of all times? Why am I having daily nightmares now? So here's my therapist's hypothesis that I 100% agree with. For the first time in my 28 years of living, I finally have stability in my life and in every aspect of my life. I have a stable job that I enjoy. I have a stable living situation, meaning I'm not moving around all the time or being stuck with shitty roommates. I have stable friends who are such amazing people. And most importantly, I have a stable, loving, and incredible partner who takes care of me how I need. So because I'm not dealing with conflict in my everyday life anymore like I used to deal with, my body is over here saying, hey girl, I see that things are all good right now. And remember all that trauma you endured in your younger years? Well, I think it's time for me, your body, and your brain to start bringing all of these awful memories up via your subconscious mind, where you stored all this shit. We're going to have a blast from the past that's so disturbing you can't ignore it. That's literally how I feel. Like, that is how I feel, is what is happening right now. And so what are we going to do about these nightmares? And when I say we, I mean me and my therapist, obviously, because I can't do this shit alone. Nobody can. So what are we going to do so that I can get rid of them? Great question. I'm so glad you asked. So friends, this leads us into EMDR therapy. So it's a type of therapy that I am about to start in July of 2020. So I literally just had like a taster at the beginning of this month. And don't worry, I'm going to fully recount all of my EMDR therapy in future episodes. So stick around for that. But before we can talk about EMDR therapy and what that stands for, what it means, what it's going to do, how it's going to help, I have got to tell you about a book that I'm reading that's helping me work through and heal from my past traumas. So that book is called The Body Keeps the Score. We are going to review. I'm not going to give you a book review. I'm going to review with you some of the information I've absorbed from the book, how it's helped me, but also, fair warning, The Body Keeps the Score is a very, very heavy book, and a lot of people are not able to finish reading it because of how heavy of a book it is. So I'm going to explain to you guys how I've been able to continue reading it and get through the heavy stuff without letting it affect me. I found a really cool way. My therapist even was like, okay, wow, that's a great way to protect yourself while reading about these heavy topics that tend to be triggering to others. So I'm going to tell you all of that in next episode. That's what we're going to focus on in episode 10, The Body Keeps the Score. But with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end today's episode on a very important note. So first of all, if you are experiencing nightmares on a regular basis, you are not alone. Secondly, if this is the case for you, if you're dealing with nightmares just like I am, I sincerely encourage you to seek help through therapy. I know that therapists aren't cheap and that not everyone can afford them, but if you can find a way to fit it into your budget in some way, shape, or form, I highly encourage this because frequent nightmares are an indication of some healing that you need, and that you deserve. Remember, you deserve healing. But you can't do this healing alone. Trust me from experience, you can't. You need outside help from a trained professional. So lastly, friends, please remember this. Seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Once again, seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It's time for What a Weirdo! Okay, y'all. So this segment is here as a way for us to normalize weird habits that we all have but don't necessarily talk about. And it's a way to create some wholesome laughter at the end of each episode, as sometimes we discuss some very difficult topics. For today, I'm actually going to share yet another one of my weirdo habits with you because I just remembered about it recently, and it is way too funny not to share. So sometimes I go to the grocery store. Usually when I'm feeling stressed is when I do this. So sometimes I go and I buy those crispy fried onions. You know, the ones that you put on green bean casserole that are so crispy and crunchy and delicious. So I'll buy them and I will eat them like chips because they're so good and they're so comforting sometimes when I'm feeling stressed out. Yeah, I am such a fucking weirdo, I know. And so I always get looks too if I am going through a non-self-checkout, or if anybody happens to see French fried onions in my hand and it's fucking July. Y'all have no idea how many weird looks I get, and I don't care because I am in the zone. I'm getting my crispy fried onion fix, and I'm going to feel better about all the stress I'm dealing with. And so, yeah, that's what I do. I'll post a picture later if you guys want. So what weirdo habits do you have? Send in your anonymous submissions by heading over to whatisheybales.com/whataweirdo. That's whatis, HEYBAILS doing.com/whataweirdo. And you can send over and tell me anonymously what weird things you do. And dude, if you're not worried about anonymity and you want me to give you a shout out on the show, just send in your submissions directly to my DMs on Instagram at distressed2joyful_Baileysway. And I am happy to give you a shout out and the credit that you deserve, my friend. Happy to. So in the next episode, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about that book I've been reading, The Body Keeps the Score. So once again, this 100% builds on today's episode and is going to be so important for you to hear because I'm going to soften a lot of the information that I've been absorbing from this book because it truly is a difficult read. Y'all will understand as I tell you more, but this book is all about, you guessed it, trauma. So with that being said, you really don't want to miss it. You don't. Thank you for tuning into the show. Be sure to follow on Instagram at distressed2joyful_Baileysway and head on over to the website to check out the show notes from this episode. If you enjoy this podcast, help spread the word by leaving a rating or a review. Who knows, I just might read your review on an upcoming episode. If you are an Apple Podcast subscriber, yes, 100% write your review. I love reading your words. If you listen on Spotify, guess what? You can actually rate with stars now. That's a new thing they've started, and I would super appreciate if you would give me whatever rating you think I deserve, which is 5 stars, which we all know. Cough, cough. So lastly, don't forget to hit subscribe to stay up to date with all of the new episode releases. So until next time, take it easy, stay grateful, and be joyful. Bye!